Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Queen of TV channel. Now, some quick things first before we get into our intro. One, please watch the video to the very end. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Second, there will be cursing and profanity. If that's not your cup of tea, this channel's not for you. Lastly, I'll be giving my opinion about the episode and the show as a whole. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Hello, everyone. I am your host, the Queen herself, and you are the Prince and Princesses. You're the subscriber or you are a viewer. Either way, welcome. Today we'll be talking about Charmed Season 1, Episode 3, Thank You for Not Morphing. This episode starts with our Charmed sisters actually attending a party of their neighbors, whose names are Marshall, Fitz, and Cynthia. They are all three siblings. They had just moved in a little while back, and apparently they've become very acquainted with our sister witches. While they are leaving, there is a Rockweiler that is hiding out in the distance where they cannot see it, but it has glowing eyes. So it's not a regular dog, it's something else. So once they get to the party, they meet and greet everybody, and they're not there for very much longer because Prue decides to go in, speak, talk, introduce themselves, and then leave. She says it is because they actually have work in the morning. They can't just really hang and just chill out with everybody. Well, Phoebe and Piper understand that it is because Andy is at this party. Now, Andy does run into Prue and they start talking and he is chatting her up. While all of this is going on, the Rockweiler actually breaks into the manor and ends up searching around the little house and ends up going upstairs where the attic is, but the dog can't get in. The door's shut. So Fitz interrupts Andy and Prue's conversation, which gives her the chance to leave because Andy at that moment was stalling her. We find out a few minutes later that Fitz wasn't supposed to do this. He actually was supposed to make sure that Prue didn't leave the party. But because he got involved with the conversation between him, with the conversation of Andy and Prue, he kind of caused a little ruckus, and Prue ended up going home early. This is where she catch the dog, and it is at the mid-level of the stairs at the little top, not the main top of the staircase, but like right there still at the bottom. When she see the dog, she is terrified of it. And the dog is viciously growling at her, and it chases her outside the house, and we see the dog's eyes glow again. By the time that Phoebe and Piper get to the house, however, the dog is gone. Prue suggests that it's Phoebe's fault for not locking the door, which, from the episode, we literally see Phoebe shut the door. So it's not Phoebe's fault because Prue is assuming that because Phoebe didn't shut the door and have it locked, that's why the dog got in, which was impossible. She did shut the door. Prue says unless they're going to train their cat to be an attack dog, they need to remind themselves to shut the door. So Phoebe pulls a prank on Prue where she shuts her into the other room where the Oasis is behind the door. The Oasis is inside the house where they got the little seating area. There's a door next to it where their washing machine is at because that's where Prue went to go take a towel because the dog left them a gift. If I remember correctly from this episode because I watched it a few like months ago. The dog used the bathroom in their house. It was upset because Prue apparently interrupted it. The next day, Prue goes to work and she is confronted by this mysterious man, and he wants her to look at a ring that he has on his finger. She examines the ring. She explains that it's from an Egyptian type made band and that it is a family heirloom. It does not take her long to reveal who this man is. It is her father. Apparently, the father has been MIA since their mother died. And I'm pretty sure y'all don't care about spoilers, so I'm just going to put this out here. Over the course of the seasons, we actually find out he did not leave the mom just to leave her. He left her because she had an affair and had another child. Matter of fact, he also left not just because the mom had a child. He left the mom in the marriage, but he didn't abandon his kids. He was in their life. The reason why he stopped coming is because their grandmother, who is a toxic feminist, not an actual good feminist, but a toxic one, she ended up threatening him because she didn't think a man could raise 3 witches. She wanted them to be raised by witches only, and if you know Charm, you know that that's bullshit because the grandma ended up forcing Prue to raise the kids, and she didn't raise them at all because she literally only kept telling them they have a destiny and everything else and trying to force them to be together, not really helping them work out their problems. And we'll get to that when we get to season 3. But it's like, I feel like if she actually did her job, Prue and Phoebe's relationship wouldn't have been strained, and Piper would have never felt like her feelings and emotions didn't matter, and that she was always expected to clean everything up and keep the family together, like be a mediator. But I digress. So she's upset with him and she wants him to leave. He wants to have dinner with them so he can meet them, and then he eventually leaves. Prue does refuse to go to this dinner. She changed her mind later, however, because Piper and Phoebe went, and she's kind of upset that they went. So she gets back home just in time to catch the demon, because the dog, of course, was a demon. But we come to a realization that while she's at work, their mailman actually shows up at their house, and he is a demon as well because he shift shapes his finger into a key. And he uses that to get into the house, which would probably explain how the dog might have got in there, or it had telekinesis or something. But he went inside, and once he got upstairs in the attic, this fool kicked this door so hard that this damn door flew off the hinges. I mean, this door was all the way on the other side of the fucking room. He took the Book of Shadows, which is what obviously the demon is after, and it tries to get out the house, but the Book of Shadows has this magical shield over it, and it even gets to the point where it tries to fight him because it considers that this person is evil. He can't get the book out of the house no matter how hard he tries. And as a result, he sees that Prue showing up. He throws the book down to the ground and turns into Andy. Once Prue gets in there, the fake Andy pretends that he was just there to do a welfare check. He asked her out on a date, telling him to meet her because he tried to do that at the party, but she wouldn't hear it. This time she says yes. We see that Cynthia comes over to see how things are going. Yep, Marshall, Fitz, and Cynthia are demons. Because that whole interaction made no sense as to why she came over there and was being totally weird. Like, it was clearly, obviously, at this point where I figured out, yeah, they're demons. There's no way. And especially when they, kind of do explain, like, how long they've actually been there. The demons start coming into their lives the moment that the grandma died. But because Phoebe moved away, they were like waiting till Phoebe came back. So once Phoebe came back, demons started hanging out with them even more, trying to befriend them, pretending to be their neighbors, all kind of shit. Because they look like regular people. Not all of them though. They just wait. Well, she leaves when she realizes that her friend didn't get caught. She actually believes it's Sandy. Prue did see the Book of Shadows on the floor and she hid it, not understanding why it's there. So once the fake Andy leaves, she goes upstairs to see that the door has been forcibly kicked in. Once Piper and Phoebe get home and Prue tells them everything that happened and Andy being there, she brings up their dad and Piper and Phoebe are like wanting to hang out with him. Now the dad did say that he just got there, right? And Prue obviously is suspicious of him. We see in this episode that she accuses him of actually being like the one that, had the doll come in, who's there to steal the Book of Shadows, who's there to kick the door out the hinges. He is there to get the Book of Shadows so they can give up their powers, but it's not for the reason that she thinks. It's for a paternal reason. So Phoebe decides to go to his house at his motel to meet him because Phoebe does not remember him at all. He was around for a little bit until the grandma got rid of him. But other than that, he was around enough to where they remember bits and pieces, but not everything. Now, he first sees Phoebe and assumes that she might be Piper, and then he comes to realize that it's not Piper, it's the youngest. It's his daughter, Phoebe. She ends up, hugging him because they're having a heart to heart and everything. And she has a premonition. She has a premonition of her giving him the book and smiling. Now, bear in mind you, this is all she's seen. This is all she sees. She doesn't see anything else, but this indicates to her that he's there to steal the book. It clearly shows in the premonition that he is being handed the book. So he's not stealing it. You literally giving it to him. So, but to her, he's here for the Book of Shadows, which would not make any sense because Prue knows he got a protection ring. So even if he was there to steal the Book of Shadows, he could easily just go into the house, go to the attic, grab the book, and take it outside the house because the protection ring will prevent the Book of Shadows from using its magic and the magic within the house from stopping him. He wouldn't really need them to just give him the book. He could literally have all this time taken the book. So it's not like he couldn't have got the book. So it doesn't make any sense why he couldn't just get it himself. So no, he's not there to steal it or like harm them. But Phoebe keeps it to herself for a little bit. She does have this premonition again later on before she actually confesses what she saw. Well, despite all that, they do go on this dinner date and they have a nice moment. Her and Piper and their father, and they're bonding. Then Prue shows up. And the moment that Prue shows up, the whole dynamic of the reunion changes. And I'll talk about that in my review because it has me like thinking about something that I might have not been thinking about in Charm when it comes to the sister's relationship. But apparently it's a very uncomfortable situation. Instead of them actually talking out their problems, there's accusations being thrown. There's spiteful comments. There is like literally judgment being cast. Like nothing's getting nowhere. And I just feel like it's like three fucking grown ass women who have powers against one fucking person who they're not allowing to answer like for himself properly because everything he says is wrong and they're not trying to hear him. Well, he ends up tripping a waiter, which causes Piper to use up powers to try to catch their dessert. This is where he reveals that he knows which power is which. Prue apparently forgot about the damn protection ring that he has on. I don't think she knows it's a protection ring. I think she just knew that it was some um, artifact that had been given to him at one point by their mother, and he recognized it because she said it was like it had a wedding band. So it probably was like some type of eternity ring that their mother gave him that they remember as children. Which I mean, we're to believe that Prue's dad left when she was like 5 or 6 because they were born in the 70s. Bear in mind you, their grandmother was still quite young in the 70s when her daughter was a teenager. So I'm guessing Patty was a teen mom. Because that's the only way the timeline of Prue's birth would make sense. If she wouldn't have had Prue as an adult, she probably would have had Prue when she was still literally a child. Which explains why she's working like at a diner because, she's gotten 3 kids. She can't necessarily like, always be at college and everything else. She's got to be home sometimes. And, her and Victor at this point are still married and he works. So it's not like they don't have any money, but it's just the idea is convenient for her to be there because she doesn't want to like miss anything. Well, once he reveals the way the protection ring works and that he knows about their powers, which I mean, duh. They go back to the house. He takes the ring off because, of course, they're his daughters. They're not going to hurt him. At least that's what he thinks. And as they're trying to talk, he's trying to explain himself as to why he left. He brings up the fact that their grandmother is the reason why he left. Now, he does get snapped on, say by Piper or Phoebe, that he's not going to blame her when she's the one that was there. Bear in mind you, person that they are defending, unbeknownst to them, literally did threaten their father to abandon them. And that man had every right to have good reason to leave. Because Hattie's a witch. And if she wouldn't hesitate to threaten him, what would stop her from casting a spell on him to make him leave? So we know for a fact that their grandmother at points abused her power. We also know at points that she could be a hypocrite. Um, but like it makes sense why they're defending their grandmother and not their father considering what their grandmother put them through growing up, because she was not as of a great of a parental figure as they give her credit for. Which, I mean, it makes sense. They were like kids, so they didn't understand how their grandmother had them growing up was wrong. Like, it was wrong of her to force Prue to raise them. That it was wrong of her to, like, instead of parent Phoebe, to just tell her that she's just ruining her destiny without telling what that destiny is. Still raising them under the notion of Wiccan life instead of, like, raising them as normal kids. It was wrong of her to, like, allow them to think that their father abandoned him. It was totally wrong of the grandmother to constantly use around the time when she was sick and she was dying, to at least that time when the girls were bickering, and instead of, like, trying to get them to talk it out and fix their problems, she suggests that they just figure it out because she's not going to be here very much longer. That still doesn't solve the problems because their relationship was fractured for a long time. So obviously they're going to have this situation where the parent that stays, that is just as harmful as the parent leaving, they're going to see them as the hero because they stayed, but the parent that left, they're going to treat as the villain. We saw this in Cobra Kai. We saw with Robbie Keane and his relationship to his mother and his relationship to Johnny. How he does not hold his mother accountable for the harmful stuff she allowed him to do and involved him in and did inside the house and around him. When it came to her own relationships and her substance abuse and her allowing him to be around gangs and stealing and being violent and going in and out of juvie. And he constantly kept making excuses that it's everybody else's fault that these bad things keep happening. It's because the reason why these bad things keep happening and I'm always the one to get blamed is because, you know, everybody's just against me. I'm the victim. It's all because my dad wasn't there. Robbie eventually realizes that he's got to stop blaming his dad. I just want to throw this in there, but for everybody that's saying that Johnny is wrong for trying to be a father to Miguel when he needs to be a father to Robbie, may I remind you that that same energy should be given to Daniel. Robbie is not his son, and the way that he tells Johnny how he ain't a good enough father for his son, bear in mind this man got a son of his own, and he don't do shit like this for him. So if Daniel can sit there and pair someone else's child, because Miguel doesn't have a father, and we find out why his father is not in his life. He's not a very good man. Robbie has a father, but Robbie's the one that's pushing his father away. Which yeah, somebody gonna say, well, you gotta understand his pain. That's fine. But still, the same energy should be given to Daniel. We see that same thing in Shameless with Fiona and her relationship with their mother, who is suffering from bipolar depression, so she is severely mentally ill, and their father, who is an alcoholic and abuser. He's the one that stayed, and the mom's the one that left. So we see this more than the once with the parent that wasn't there, opposed to a parent that was very harmful. With that being said, like, that's why that they're defending their grandmother, because she's the one that stayed. So everything that she would have done to them that would have been damaging, the words, her teachings, her learnings, her beliefs, her thoughts on men, her thoughts on love and relationships. Like, we even find out that their grandmother is against them being married to normal people. That she apparently is disappointed in Paige when Paige ends up marrying a human. She literally says the words, haven't I taught you girls anything? Like, she wants them to only be married to people who are magical creatures. She would have never accepted Prue and Andy as a relationship. Not one time. Like, she was very prejudiced. So, like, she was not a good influence for them growing up. You can tell by the men that they date, she wasn't a good influence. So, argument goes nowhere. Like, there's nothing he can say to convince them to trust him. It gets to the point where Prue even gets violent with him and throws him into the banister wall. He gets up and said, you could have just told me to leave. He forgot the protection ring and he left. Piper and Phoebe got mad at Prue, saying that she didn't have to do that. They could have just talked like normal people. Prue tried to argue back, they're not normal, but that's not an excuse to get violent with him. First and foremost, I understand that they're adults now, and he wasn't there, but he's still their father. And it's not like he abandoned them as babies. He stayed around long enough until he was forced out. They don't know the whole story because they're not letting him tell the whole story. Because even if he does tell the whole story, it's going to look bad on him because he's trying to blame the grandmother. You got to think, this was back in the damn 90s, right? So back in those days, a man couldn't say a woman did this without it like he blaming the woman as to why he couldn't be a man. So he can't blame the grandmother because it's going to look bad on him. Well, next day is no better. Obviously, they're not talking at the time. Andy actually got told by Prue that she wasn't coming on a date, but he was able to change her mind. We see that the mailman, who we find out a few minutes later, who breaks right back into the house, is actually Fitz, who walks in on Marshall, who's pretending to be Phoebe, and Cynthia pretending to be Piper. If I'm incorrect, that's switched the roles of the characters they pretending to be. But he tells them that Prue's on her way back. This plan isn't going to work. They need to leave. So Cynthia decides that screw this, let's just kill him. No, that's not going to work. Her brothers have to calm her down just so they could turn into crows and fly out. This is where we see Prue actually, like, after this occurrence, say that it's got to be their dad, because ever since he arrived, everything went wrong. The problem is that he wasn't around when that dog broke into their house. Matter of fact, they can't explain how the hell he kicked the door off the hinges. He doesn't have powers. And lastly, if he was in the house, wouldn't Andy have seen him? And had Prue ever asked Andy what he was doing there in the first place? Because I'm pretty sure if she had asked Andy about that situation, he would have told her he was never in her house. And it would have clicked with her that that wasn't him she was talking to. And she couldn't blame that on her dad because she would have said the fact that that might have been a demon. But I digress. Cynthia is upset. She starts breaking things into their house because they've tried everything and they have not gotten to the book. They've done the fucking bare fucking minimum. There is nothing they were doing that was going to work because they weren't doing shit anyway. Marshall decides that maybe they should go to the father. So they go to Victor, and Victor's like, he already knows what's up. They gonna assume that they can just pretend to be him just to convince the girls to trust him and hand him over the book, like Phoebe saw in her premonition. He literally calls their bluff, saying the girls hate him at the moment, and until, he comes to realization they can go to Phoebe. So Victor needs to get to Phoebe first. Once the girls actually start talking, Phoebe admits about her premonition after Victor did reveal, before Prue literally knocked him into the banister, that he is there to take away their powers. Because he doesn't think that they should have chosen to be witches. He does not want them to spend the rest of their life be witches and get hurt and get killed. Sadly, but surely, if you've watched Charm, you will come to the realization that he was right. And you have moments where the girls actually want to give up their powers. Because it does get to a point where it does get too much. Especially when they start getting into serious relationships, want to settle down, and are having children. So themselves, and they come to realize that maybe their grandmother was not correct in about their destiny. I mean, they wouldn't change it for the world, but there's like a lot of times the magic stuff just got too much. So Phoebe admits this, and she says that, all I want to do is know my father. This is where Prue realized that she might have been selfish this whole relationship type dynamic with her sisters, and like this whole episode as a whole. Because just because she's mad at him, it didn't give her the right to keep her sisters away from their father. He could have given them some grace and allowed them to know him. She didn't have that relationship with him, but they could. Like, it wasn't like Phoebe and Piper were trying to force Prue to have a relationship with him. They wanted the relationship themselves. And she just wouldn't let that happen. Well, they kiss and make up. Phoebe, who thinks that Prue is right, goes outside to get the paper where she's confronted by Victor, her dad. Fitz and Marshall are across the street, leaning against a car. Apparently waiting for their plan because Cynthia is in the house baking cookies with Piper. Well, when Victor comes up to Phoebe, she tells him to get away from her. He grabs her and tells her to actually look at her premonition. Because I think I have a theory as to why she couldn't see the full picture. So when she finally does have the premonition, she witnesses not her dad, but Marshall be given the book, who looks like her dad, and shifts back into himself, where he runs across the street with the book with Cynthia and Fitz. Now, here's the thing about the book they're not going to tell us early on. Evil can't actually touch the book. To be able to touch the book, you have to actually have the complete, like, grace of the charm one's trust to be able to touch that damn thing. But I would think that after you lose their trust, you shouldn't be able to touch it. But I'm guessing that the book is weak when it comes to that type of thinking, because that might be its main weakness. And on top of that, it has something to do with their emotions as well. But once she sees this, she kind of gets some clarity. They ask her if everything's okay. She says, yeah, everything's fine. She runs into the house. And she wants to tell her sisters, but she can't because Cynthia's in there. She tells them to save her cookie. She goes upstairs where she finds the Book of Shadows, and she finds a spell that they need, with the help of the book, to find a way to get rid of them in the house. The spell she finds is a power 3 spell, of course, and it says as follows. In a circle that is home, when safety's gone, evil roams. Rid all beings from these walls. Save Sisters 3, now he are called. While she was upstairs, Marshall, pretending to be their dad, actually comes in to try to manipulate Piper and Prue. Phoebe comes downstairs when their real dad walks through the door. So him and the fake version of him are bickering back and forth to try to prove that they're the real Victor. Until the real Victor says, just go ahead and kill us both. They realize this is the real Victor. Piper reminds Prue of the protection ring. She pushes it to him, trusts him, and he's able to put it on. They say the spell. Now, it does affect Victor, but I'm guessing it's because of the protection ring or because the girls hate him. And it works. They have to say it 3 times to kill the demons. And once that happens, they're able to, like, make up with their dad. In the next scene of the episode before it ends, we see the girls are getting ready to meet their dad for dinner. Phoebe wants to meet him because she doesn't want him to, like, leave again before she has a chance. Piper doesn't care if he leaves again. She just wants him to show up. And Prue's already calling him dad, thinking he's going to be there completely. Well, they open the door. It's not their dad. It's the handyman, Leo. He's there to fix the door. The door, who I believe has been broken off the hinges for the last 2 damn days. So it takes a long time for the handyman repair system to get involved. Um, she she's very smitten with him, and I'm referring to Phoebe. Phoebe already immediately starts flirting with him, and he gives them a video tape that their dad left. They read the note saying in his own writing, "I know you don't want to, like, remember everything. You want to forget it all, but just the one thing I hope you don't forget." And it is a home video of the last Christmas they spent with their mom before she died, when their dad was still around. And the episode ends there. So let's talk about it. I already mentioned the stuff about the grandma. I already, like, gave my 2 show references. So let's talk about the dinner. First and foremost, I believe Prue, I don't want to say toxic dynamic when she's involved, when her sisters are dealing with, like, their own thoughts and feelings about certain people. Because she was right about one of Phoebe's boyfriends eventually, but it's like, I feel like when Prue is with her sisters, there's, like, this shift in Piper and Phoebe. Because, like, when Piper and Phoebe are by themselves or they're with Prue, there's certain different dynamics in what they are when they're all 3 together. When Piper and Prue are together, as we'll see as seasons progress, they got like a partners in crime duo, going on. Not in crime, but like in justice. With Phoebe and Prue, dynamic when they're together is where Phoebe ends up having to defend Prue. When she feels like her older sister slash mama figure is being threatened. Like, she becomes like the backup sister to help her out and stuff. When Piper and Phoebe are together, they're just chilling. They're having fun. They're living their best life. They're like literally 2 peas in a pod. That's the only time we see the most vulnerable parts of Piper and Phoebe. But when all 3 of them together, it's like Prue commands the conversation and the scene. Where Piper and Phoebe do not become vulnerable. Phoebe becomes reckless. Um, she gets angry from time to time, and she starts acting like a literal like child. And it's not like throughout the whole season, it's like early on. And then with Piper, Piper starts acting like the mediator. She starts acting like, you know, the quiet, timid child. She does not speak up, not one time. So it's like, it's very disheartening because it's like, Piper doesn't have a certain voice. So I saw that shift and I was like, I don't like this. Because they were fine at first. I'm not saying that they should not have confronted him. But at the same time, all of that could have waited. You know, like, they would have probably had this conversation when they got to the house. I don't believe that conversation should have been had in public. Mind you, they were at a restaurant. So having that conversation there would have eventually caught people's attention. Now, let's talk about the dynamics, however, between their dad and them. When Prue and her dad talks, it's like he's talking to his wife. Now, the sisters do mention in this season eventually that Prue was more like their mother. Their mother also was single. At 30, she was always working, and like, she apparently was dead set on a lot of things. The only difference between Prue and Patty is that, Prue didn't have any kids. Her mom did. So that was like the biggest difference. But like, just like her mom, she was going to like, it was basically, it was being told that she was going to probably end up like her mom, which kind of did scare Prue. I felt like if Prue kept on going this path, she would have been like her grandmother eventually, had it not been for certain people in her life and her sisters. When he's with Piper, it's like with Piper, like she's more level headed. They're like talking like they haven't like they haven't seen each other for years. Like they talk like they apparently have. And I feel like Piper's like her dad. While Phoebe is like a child all over again. But not like with Prue when they're all three together, but like she's like a little girl seeing her daddy. So I feel like I'm probably more like Phoebe, you know? So when they're all three together with him, it becomes hostile. Like they don't know how to connect with him. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that the issues that Prue got are not valid. I'm not saying that she doesn't have the right to be mad. And it's okay that Victor walked out. Even if the grandmother did threaten him, I wouldn't have walked out. I would have gotten the law involved. And I'm pretty sure that the elders were playing a part in this too. Now, you will find out who the elders are later on, but they are these magical people who are dead, mind you, and they're like the literal CEO of all magical creatures, good magical creatures, and witches. So I think that maybe they might have played a little part in that. Now they don't never tell us this, but like if they wanted the girls to be the charm ones and to like save the world without any pushback, they probably would be like, nah, he doesn't want them to be a part of their destiny. I understand that Victor, like, as a parent does not want his girls to have to spend the rest of their adult lives, like literally their entire 20s. Like the rest of Piper and Phoebe's 20s were spent on having to hunt down demons while at the same time trying to work, have a family, and work on relationships. And it took a freaking toll on their lives and their jobs. So it's not something that you would be like, oh, let's jump right up into this then. Because it does have a massive impact. So I can understand where he's coming from. I can understand why they feel like he has no right to tell them that, because obviously they some grown ass adults. Not only that, I just feel like no one actually was heard in this episode. Like Victor was not able to like give his side of the story because he got a whole lot of pushback. Prue didn't really fight her trauma, and I feel like she has way more trauma than her dad. I think her grandmother added even more trauma on her growing up that she never fully dealt with. Piper has her own trauma because of the situation, and she doesn't come to like get over that until like seasons later. And the same thing could be said about Phoebe. I believe it took, as much as she has a lot of hater fans, um, Phoebe was not her usual self. Like as much as people like to shit on season like 3, 4, and 5, seasons 3, 4, and 5, Phoebe, like it literally takes Phoebe a while before she's able to get over her traumas and problems. It is not shift by the time we get to season what, 6 and 7? No. Mm-mm. It takes Phoebe like all the way to season 8. So it takes Phoebe near the whole damn show to find her footing and like where she wants to be in her life fully, her dreams, her wants, her fears, and like the life she actually wants to have when she does get married and stuff. It takes Phoebe a long time to come to the realization that she's more like her mother, but she wouldn't make the mistakes like her mother. She's both her mother and her father. Piper is like the better version of her grandmother, the version that is not a complete toxic feminist. And apparently she also deals with that too. Like her and Phoebe eventually starts picking up the toxic femininity of their grandmother. So it's like, yeah, they got a lot of growing up to do. It makes sense. They're in their fucking 20s. Phoebe is literally 23 in this season. The season that they are shitting on Phoebe, which is season 3, 4, 5, and even some people for season 6. In season 4, Phoebe is like 25. Not season 4. Season 3, she's 25. Season 4, she's 26. Season 5, she's like 27. She's 28 by season 6. Like, no one figures their life out in their 20s. Nobody. Like, literally nobody. Just getting married and having a bunch of kids does not mean you had your life figured out in your 20s. Wisdom comes with age. That term means something. Like, count all the gray hairs you got. That's a sign of wisdom too. But like, also stress as well. So wisdom comes with age. You gotta let them grow up first. And that's okay. Nobody's perfect. But, like I said, it takes them a while to like really combat these traumas, especially their daddy issues. I don't they still have those issues by season 4. It's actually their other sister, Paige, who has her own form of father issues. Because let's be clear here, Paige's dad actually ain't been there since she was a baby. Her and Patty agreed to both give her up for adoption because they weren't allowed to be together. But like this man decided to clearly cop out of her life the moment the mama died. Hell, at least that damn dad made attempts to show the fuck up. He didn't make attempts, period. He just gave up on life and became a fucking drunk the moment the mom died, forgetting he had a daughter out there he could have connected with, who wanted that connection with him. So, yeah. But that's all I got for you guys today, because if we keep talking about this, we're going to go down a whole long list of rabbit hole. Hopefully the girls fight all their traumas. I can't remember the show as a whole, so we'll just have to see as we continue on. But I do know the fact that by the time season 3 had ended, the girls did in fact get over their fatherly trauma, so that is a plus. But without further ado, I'll see you guys next video. Hope you have a blessed day. Hope you have a wonderful day. And if no one touches day, I'm telling you, I love you guys. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.